Kruspel, Mainstreet Credit Union. My job there is to be the chief shit disturber and bring everybody along to a growing credit union that's prosperous for all our members.
So as Babu mentioned, I am an accidental podcaster. I can probably tell you a little bit about that at the break. But I run the contact centers for Scotiabank. We're in 6 different locations, 4 different countries, 3,000 employees across the nation. And it's as a call center operator, no one calls the call center to say, we love you. They call you to say, shit hit the fan, it didn't work, fix it for me, please. And so I see my team as really the problem solver of every problem in the bank right now. And it's a good place to be because there's always problems to solve.
Wonderful. Mary.
Okay, that's myself. Okay. Mary Aina. I am with Innocap Investment Management Inc. I am a global head of technology, strategy, finance, and cybersecurity. I got into cybersecurity by accident, and I absolutely love it.
Super.
My name is Todd Eicher. I'm with DataNimbus, and I think a little bit of what Heather said is I'm part of the Global Field Operations Center at DataNimbus, and so we're taking a lot of practical steps to bring AI and advancements to the payment industries, and that brings a certain amount of challenges, as always when you're bringing ideation and innovation. So hopefully today you'll leave with some very practical steps to improve that rate of adoption at your company.
Super. So we have a wonderful house full day today, and we have a lot of interesting speakers who are going to speak to us. Or again, we want to keep it more as a platform where we are going to share what the industry is looking forward in terms of innovation and what are the wish lists of the sector through this conversation that we have. And let us try to get into dwell into some interesting areas of AI together. So Jamie, why don't we start with you? Okay. So you have been one of the innovators in the credit union space. The credit union is very conservative when it comes to technology, and rightfully so.
Very conservative and understated.
Yes, but that is the way it is, because I have been working with credit unions since 2007, and I understand one thing very critical: you have to manage with your limited resources and growing expectations of your customers on the other side. Very, very high expectations, because you cannot lose your customers to the larger banks which can afford to spend any kind of money into technology, which don't have billions of dollars, you don't obviously have. So, of course, you have to manage within this budget frame. So, when you are using AI from a credit union's perspective, which are some of the most interesting areas of AI, which you see where the credit unions can have a great advantage from?
So interesting that you mentioned the different levels of scale and expectations. So I used to work in call centers as well, and I know probably one of the top calls that your team gets is, I didn't spend the money on that thing. Disputed transaction. What I find fascinating is that my own credit union, if a member had that complaint, it would probably take a visit or a phone call or an email or something and some time, and it would probably be days before it's resolved. Our members don't compare us to other financial institutions, they compare us to other experiences they have. And I can tell you, when I was once in an Uber and I had essentially a disagreement about the transaction, and it was resolved before I got out of the car. So how do we, as a credit union with modest resources, compete with that level of technological expectation? And the answer is we don't. So what we focus on is, why are they with us to begin with? And it's because they want to achieve the life they want to live through their finances. And how do we deliver that, making it easy for them? And where I find the best opportunity for us with AI is a tool in our toolkit to make the processes of banking faster and more accurate for less effort. It would probably surprise you, hopefully not, how much time is spent at financial institutions taking a piece of data from a document, from one file, moving it to another file, checking that it's right, and then have somebody else remove that, and then saying, oh wait, I don't have access to that, let me go ask the customer again for that piece of information. And really, if you think about it, every single one of us, our top 2 expenses are people and technology. And where does that go? People using technology to follow through on processes, which involve gathering and moving data to make decisions. And where AI can help is there's fantastic tools to grab information out of documents. There's fantastic ways to grab data from a database, put it somewhere else. And in fact, one of the coolest things that we built is we tried an experiment last month where we put a bunch of people in a room, and the problem we solved was you're a financial advisor, you're getting ready to meet a member, there's a certain amount of things that you want to know before that meeting so you can give that Babu the best possible conversation. And you're likely going to spend 45 minutes going through a bunch of different tools to gather information. Well, we figured out what those questions were, so we got the requirements, and we built something within a day that worked, that would automatically generate ahead of the meeting, and now that advisor's ready. And AI wasn't the solution, it was a part of it. Some of it was query building, some of it was programming, and then some of it was asking a large language model to put the package together. And that's where I think the advantage is saving time to make things happen faster, to make it easier for the member of the customer.
We are coming to Agentic AI, where you have a very strong case or need within the credit union where it has to be used.
I would say moving information. If you are moving data, if you are collecting data, that is probably one of the leading opportunities. And to be real, that it is not about agentic AI as the solution. You need to define the problem and what you're trying to solve first, and then determine how an agent or other things can help you. Like I said, that use case I talked about, the primary mode of solving the problem was writing data queries. And yes, we could have used an agent to help with those too, but again, it wasn't doing the work by itself.
Heather, from your side, I'm sure like most of the other banks, at least the big five boys of the Mainstreet, you call it as, you have been privileged to use some of the best technologies there. And what I have noticed globally amongst banks, not just in Canada, is that most of these innovations and agentic AI experiments have still yet to move to the large scale production kind of scale. From your perspective as a practitioner in the area of customer experience, what are some of those key challenges that organizations like yours face when you try to get into from POCs to production?
Before we get into POC production, I want to talk about the promise that's being made to the CEOs. And the promise is AI is going to automate everything and it's going to eliminate all your customer problems.
Magic hand.
Okay, no, it's not. And I want to put out there my belief, and I want you guys to think about this from this angle. AI is going to do amazing things. It's going to automate all the transactional pieces that shouldn't take so much time. We shouldn't have to move data. We shouldn't have to cut and paste in a call center. We shouldn't have to re-verify anything. Clients should call in. We know who the client is. We can anticipate their needs. We're using our data for that. But 2-3 years, maybe longer, maybe shorter, all of the banks are going to buy the same technology. And that then isn't the differentiator anymore. And we're in a moment in time where the differentiator feels like it's technology, but it's actually the people. And the people have to trust the technology to actually move it forward. Because if you put in all kinds of automation and your entire workforce is, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my job, they're going to resist it and they're not going to use it. And so if you're not, this is the first moment in my career that I've seen that technology, risk, compliance, HR, all have to be aligned on the outcome that they're looking for, and not just from an AI perspective or a technology perspective. Because if your culture and your AI investment doesn't happen at the same time, what's going to happen is you're not going to have people using it. And so when you go into a pilot or a production, you've got humans that are going to give you feedback. And are they giving you biased feedback because they're afraid of losing their jobs? Are they trying to break the system, which we want them to do? That's a good use case for them to do. But are they trying to break it to make it better, or are they trying to break it so that they keep their jobs? And so at the same time, we have to think about how are the humans going to evolve? And the future state of humans is not the way we've been hiring. It's not the competencies we've been hiring for. I'm not going to put people in a training room for 4 weeks because AI is gonna listen to the call and say, I think you need this information for that client, and it's gonna serve it up for them. What I do need to teach is how to have empathy, how to have compassion, how to have curiosity. And so if I go back to the pilot to production question, we can't just be measuring, oh, it's going to cost us less in the future. It's going to be less people that you need. It's actually going to allow us to have more empathetic conversations with clients in moments that matter, and all the transactional stuff go to the wayside. But that means we have to have people that know how to get to the heart of the matter. And that's what's going to win our clients over. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, that's what's going to win us over. And I'm quite worried about how fast the technology spend is going and the people spend is sort of staying at the same place. And it's quite worrying me from a people perspective.
You know, from my conversations with a lot of leaders from the industry, one of the important things that I have noticed is all these have to be driven from the top. And the top has to probably give an assurance to the teams that, hey, we are not going to do more with less, but we are looking to do more with more. And how can we give that assurance to people that you are not going to lose job, my dear friend, but you are going to do more and we are going to be more productive and more profitable. If that kind of thought is probably percolated downstream, people will probably take efforts to learn AI. And if you are having an AI-driven ecosystem within the organization, I think that is the best that you can have. So you can have a rocket fueled within your organization to take you to the outer space.
Babu, I 100% agree with you, and I want to highlight that what you just said is that we have to also spend the currency of trust. And if you know trust in the bank, then it's going to fail for you. So, think about that as you're going out and saying, no, there's not going to be job losses. Actually, that's not true. The true statement that we should be saying is, every single one of us of our jobs is going to look different 1 year from now. I might have the same title, I might have the same responsibilities, but how I do it is going to look different, and let's go on that journey together.
Absolutely. Even you see compliance, you see customer experience, each role has to be transformed. And AI will transform each of these roles. Any interesting area you want to focus upon where AI is currently not used, but you think it will actually leapfrog the sector to a great extent, especially from customer experience perspective that you are here?
Yeah, absolutely. From a call center perspective, if you call into the call center, the person that's answering your call right now at the bank has 3 screens, 5 to 6 to 8 applications open, and is cutting and pasting data between systems. So that definitely has to be automated. Having things like real-time agent assist, where we're listening to the call from an AI perspective, we're feeding them the curiosity questions they can ask or the information that needs to be done. And then that way I don't have to spend a whole lot of time training. I can train more on the connection, the human connection. And think about the transactional stuff should be taken off. But we have people that call us because their house just burned down and they're calling with their insurance policy. They need to buy a car or they're buying a mortgage. So there's the happy path and there's not so happy path. And we need to just stop worrying about where did I authenticate the customer, and did I follow all my compliance issues, and how do I actually talk to this human like they matter. That's going to really, really make a difference. And we can't have it scripted. And I'll share an experience that's not with my bank, it's with another bank. But I remember, this is what scripting can do for you. My father died, and I went in to take some money out so I could buy his coffin. And the script of the person said, oh, are you doing something fun with that money?
Oh my gosh.
And I said, no. And I didn't say anything because I thought, well, I'm not the coaching opportunity. And he didn't stop there. He said, oh, okay. So what are you spending the money on? And I said, a coffin. And he wasn't trained to make that moment matter for us. He didn't know what to do next with that because his job, right, is to validate it's a big amount of money coming out. Maybe I should ask. But we need to teach that skill at a very high level so that people can feel connected to their bank, trust their bank, or any industry that you're in at all. And I think that's an important factor to consider is how do we teach those skills? They're no longer soft skills. They're going to be needed in the future. And nobody thinks that that's true right now. Like, I'm really having trouble because they're like, but I need to know AI. All of us in this room, if I went around the room and asked you, like, are you an AI expert? There's a couple of you that I know are programmers and all those stuff, but most of us are like, we're all learning together. And that's the beauty of it. We just need to be creative thinkers at this point.
I really appreciate this point. One of the most important thing is how to humanize AI.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we are all humans, and that is probably the void space which AI can never fill. That is where human role is definitely required. And again, whatever AI does, it cannot override that humanity that we can bring in. It's an absolutely great point. In fact, there was a case where Air Canada, it is a published case, where Air Canada had this customer who asked for a flight and the details of the flight, and it gave some wrong details and he missed the flight. And then when he came and complained it to the Air Canada customer experience center, they came back and said, hey, this was a problem because of AI, it is not our problem. And that went into a major case. And so such kind of emotional requirements, humanization is definitely an important piece. Thank you for sharing that, Heather. So let's go to Mary. Mary, you have been in multiple sectors. You have done banking, you have been with the payments regulator, Interact, you have been with cooperators, and now, of course, you are from the private equity and asset management side. What are some of those interesting innovations that are happening around in Agentic AI? Where you see a strong potential for Agentic AI to work, be it in the asset management side or investment banking side where investments are happening, or from the insurance side where I would like to seek your expertise because most of us are bankers otherwise.
Absolutely, thank you. So I never worked with Interact, but I did do some work with them in banking. I will focus on insurance because that is where my heart was for quite a while there. An interesting fact, so the credit union that Jamie works with, I think that we insured their clients. There's an aspect there because we're all a big cooperative, which I really like. So it's always good to see a partner out there. Okay, so back to your questions around innovations. And I really resonate with your story because when you think about insuring your house, your property, you don't do it for a day when you need to. You don't just call in and say, hey, you don't call in and say, oh, I've been paying my money and all that, my policy, I want to cash it out. You call when you have issues. So, when we think about it from that perspective is how do we make out when we worked in the insurance spaces, how do we make the claims process so seamless while getting you to the end of job very quickly? So, lots of things are going on there where you can have someone just work with you. So it's 2 a.m, your house is burnt down. The last thing on your mind is, where am I going to stay? So you want to call in, you want to make sure, someone knows what your policy is. We get you somewhere quickly, connect with a hotel and say, hey, we booked you in a hotel, we got your car to come pick you up, and do all of those things pretty seamlessly. So that is something I feel like if we could have that where one phone call and everything between is done for you. And all you just have to worry about is, I put the call in, or even just texted a message if someone can figure that out. That would be good. Now, when we think about innovations that are near and dear to my heart, it would be around the security space. When we think about what can we do and what can we innovate in the agentic space, it would be more like autonomous identity and access management, looking at tokenets, looking at how can we do more of that preemptive work when we're looking at security across the whole stack, and getting you earlier there and being more autonomous, if you will, to get the work done, finding things earlier on, doing the monitoring, doing the alerting, doing the fixing on the fly, and of course having all that evidence of all the work that was done and what the agents have been looking at and all of that good information. Right now there are some things happening but we haven't thought about it from that securing everything perspective. So that's the kind of innovation that I'm seeing and I'd like to see more.
You know, this is one of my very favorite areas. And I ask all the security and risk leaders. We are in an age of agentic AI, where on one side the customer has all the privileges of having his own bots. Okay, his agentic AI is running to identify the best of the products he wants to buy. On the other side, you have the fraudster, Mr. Fraudster, who is more privileged than you because he is doing 24/7 work on, creating bots which can cause frauds in your banks and financial institutions. That's his job. And here you are with few people, a small team, trying to use agentic AI to A, impress your customer, and B, beat the frauds. Okay. Now tomorrow is going to be a world of bots versus bots. Okay. So how do you feel this challenge of bots versus bots happen in this sector? And how are banks or financial institutions getting ready for that?
That's a big one. But when you say it's coming tomorrow, it is here already. And if you're following the news, you're hearing about it all the time. You're seeing what's going on, and there is no way around it. It's with everything we've always done. It's to always stay one step ahead. I was at an event the other day, and someone was talking about, trying to think like the bad guys and helping you correct yourself and get you ready. And I think that's a good one. I know a few years ago, that was the way things worked, and I always had this concept that rather than build from scratch, why didn't you, find a bunch of criminals who are really good at this and ask them, how would you do X and Y? And just get them to give you those insights so you can build it in. I don't think anyone has the blueprint for how to get there. We're going to be at that point where, at that inflection point where it's now like, sometimes I don't know if you get it, you're trying to do something with your agent and you notice that the agent is talking to another agent and you're like, hey, this doesn't seem right, let me get in there and see what's going on. But it's already happening today. But it's a matter of just, we will not outsmart everyone and we will not be perfect at it. But we just have to become more creative, and that's where that human aspect of things come into play, where it's like, okay, we cannot be 10,000 steps and do all the things, but how can we bring that humanness into the way we do our work, and the way we manage ourselves, and the way we safeguard our environment. And once you have that and build that in, then that gives you that edge.
Super. As a security practitioner and as a risk and compliance practitioner, one of the most important things that would be required is also to have that kill switch when the agent goes wrong, right? So that is one of the most important things. What is your thought about it?
Is there really ever a kill switch?
It's a blind man and the elephant today.
It's you can do as much as you want, but you can try and you can put, but it's more about, and I think it goes back to when you're building to have those safeguards in place, and that's with going on a journey such as evolution and getting a lot of your AI agents to work together, not just with the tech team and your head of AI, but to bring all the different groups on the journey with you. Have your compliance guy there, have your legal guy, have your HR, have everyone come on that journey. So that way, you're focusing on the one thing and the client experience or the savings and the process optimization, but then everyone else is also coming on that journey to say, hey, have we thought of this, have we thought of that, can we insert this there, can we build that capability inside of it? Because at the end of the day, we're good at what we're good at. But then there's the next guy who knows something that we don't. So we're all working on all of our fixes together. I think it's a little slower in the sense that there's so many noise, there's a lot of noise coming in. But if you build it well from the ground, I think it does help to build all of those features in.
Super. And it is an ongoing exercise. I think there is no permanent fix because the day you invent a solution, immediately the next problem is invented too. So you are constantly on the rocks, especially you are really trying to catch up with what is happening. Great. So let's go to Todd. Todd, you have been in one of the most exciting spaces, especially absolutely, and yours is the most riskier space as well when it comes to payments because one rogue bot and you hadn't. So from your perspective, what are the kind of innovations that are happening, especially in agentic AI in payments, which are yet to come, or what are on the wish list of the people? And on the other side, how conservatively should the banks and financial institutions look at agentic AI when it comes to payments?
Great question. So I'll start at the end and work towards the beginning. So Agentic AI in terms of payments, Agentic AI absolutely excels at things like I'm going to characterize, I'm going to create, I'm going to recommend, right? Where it runs into challenges is when you actually have to execute something like a payment. So just like we've always said, separation of duties, even what we have right now in the current space, you can have Agentic AI risk score a potential customer. You can have it detect fraud. You can have it find all these pieces, but when it comes to the execution, the recommendation probably right now is to continue to use the execution engine that you currently have. Again, makers and checkers are different. Checkers never make, makers never check, right? And when we talk about agentic AI, and you're thinking about building these big things inside of your groups or corporations, agentic AI and agents, they don't work terrific at really large scale. They work really well at a very tightly deterministic set of rules, right? So you're going to create several agents to deal with a particularly complex workflow. You're not going to have one overarching agent that does it all. So the things that it does really well right now in transaction banking and industry, fraud detection, absolutely, it's one of the biggest places that we've seen real gains and real monetization of the AI. And I do tend to look at it on the flip side. Instead of necessarily that it's catching more fraud, what it's doing is it's actually increasing the through switch payments. In other words, it's eliminating false positives. So go to the loss that you suffered. If someone is taking out a large amount of money or making a payment in the case of a loss, you don't want that transaction stopped, right? You don't want it flagged as fraud. So a false positive, it affects the person. And Jamie, as you said, they're never going to bank with you again if you stop the payment for an emergency, right? So eliminating false positives, that's one of the side effects, but it's actually one of the biggest gains for your customers because customers, that's what goes up, okay? So reconciliation, that is something that you were asking what's coming. More real-time or near real-time reconciliation of payments across the day. We're always looking at liquidity. Normally you have to wait to the end of the day to determine how much money is there. Now with AI, you can of course have real-time or near real-time liquidity and reconciliation, even across multi-bank payments. So you're going to see the ability to access the funds, the treasury information, far faster and far more accurately than you ever have before. So those are mechanical things that AI is going to do that is going to augment someone's job, right? A lot of the AI that people are dealing with right now, they're tool-based AI. I tend to call it we're in a shiny tool phase. The companies have delivered to us all a bag of tools and said, be better. So you get a big bag with no instructions. It is quite literally the bag of Legos, and then you're supposed to build a battleship. You have no idea what it's supposed to look like. You have no idea how to do it. So of course you're being told to be better. Where we are looking in the industry right now is elevating the outcome. The outcome should have an achievement, not just another step. You will be very fast to reach the next step in your workflow, which you then still have to complete. So elevating people above the workflow, making them operate as a supervisor and as an approver, not necessarily I have to tick the box every single time. But again, very specific duties and roles for each one of the AI. Jamie, your description of having a customer profile provided to your agents, I immediately think of that should already be done. Their calendar should be looked at. It should be dropped in. They should see them all. There's so many ways that the workflow, the day-to-days can be improved without jeopardizing the fear of their jobs. It just makes it funner, faster, and easier because you're taking away the tedium. No one wants that.
Super. So from your perspective, okay, when we are talking about agentic AI, especially in payments, what are some of those critical areas where you see is the kind of bottleneck which comes when it comes to scaling up from POCs to production in agentic AI? Because I am sure every one of us are facing the challenge there.
Absolutely, everybody is. We're gonna start with the word the letters POC. The problem with the POC, proof of concept. Let's do that. That is a very legacy concept, and it was done a long time ago when you have disparate systems that had to integrate together to prove that you could do X. Can I move A to B? Can I look at C? Can I do these things? With AI, the concepts are generally not needed to be proved in the sense of, can AI do it? 99% chance, yes it can. So to stop and do a POC is by definition going to prove in effect something that's already well known. Conceptually, there's not much left to prove. Where POCs fall short in the scaling to production is POCs are so tightly defined, you aren't working with production data, you aren't working with messy data. Someone has curated the data so specifically to show that yes, that can be scraped, and yes, we can dedupe, and yes, we can move it over to this database, and yes, it shows up on the dashboard, that when it actually moves into production and you are looking at a messy, non-transformed, non-deduped database, it blows up. So then people get mad at the AI. Guess what? AI is not the problem, it's the data. So, two things that kill POCs to production is the reality of the data. A holistic data management strategy has to be the first thing you do before you even begin a POC, and I'll talk about in a second, and governance. Even if the POC is successful, when you start getting into the real implementation of a high-level AI capability, governance becomes absolutely key. Who is going to manage that model? Who is going to manage that agent? Who's going to define what it's back to the scope, right? Who's defining what is a maker? Who's defining what's a checker? Who's going to be watching all of that? We all know models drift and they have to be tuned, right? So governance is often left out of POCs, so the POC is successful, it starts to move in production, and then governance pops up. So to make a POC more successful, bring governance sooner, do a business value assessment, make sure that the ROI is there, and then of course, where I tend to tell people to start, I don't tend to tell them to start at POCs. The newest pilots, right? A pilot, start thinking of a pilot. A pilot is a production equivalent deployment of the AI outcome or application, and it is done on the production database. In other words, before you as a consumer take that, you get to see it in operation. You see what the screens look like, you see what the outcome looks like, and you can tune it internally if the vendor will allow you to. But you're not going to be surprised when the pilot is done, how does it work, right? So instead of starting with a POC, yes, you start with a pilot, you can do a POC on a small segment, but think POC, think pilot, and then production, not POC to production. Almost never works.
Interesting. Well, I want to come to you for more further questions, but I would like to shift my attention to Jamie. Jamie, from your experience as the CIO of a credit union who has been in the forefront, at least in adopting AI, you have done a lot of experiments with AI. What is your advice to the fellow CIOs, especially from the credit union space, now that you know both the constraints of the credit union and the kind of opportunities available in the side of AI? So, what is your advice to fellow CIOs and who would like to jump into the bandwagon of AI? Where to start? What are the kind of things they should look from a credit union's perspective? And to the fellow vendors or fintechs who are trying to create solutions for the sector?
I'm going to reference something Heather said that really resonates. It's bring your teammates along. Something that I think we did without intention that has proved huge dividends was when Microsoft Copilot first became available and ChatGPT was picking up steam, we told our employees, use it. We wrote a policy that said, use it Don't be foolish, don't put any data in it, don't put anything like that, but use it to help you get comfortable. And that seems to have helped because now we have comfort. We have 15% of our employees using licensed Copilot Plus with defined use cases. So that makes it sound like we're the AI credit union go use AI, but that's not really what it's about. It's about finding ways to do the more meaningful parts of your job. Ooh, how's that? And so the other piece of advice I want to share is the downside of the use of tools like AI is if you over rely on them, you cognitively surrender. And what I mean by that is, how many people have read a document that was clearly the production of a large language model that had zero editing applied to it? And it has terms like work closely and like, I hate the term work closely. What is the alternative? We're going to work far apart. We're going to strive for excellence. Well, I sure hope so. So anytime that a large language model is introduced into a task or a teammate is using it to create, I see that as a problem because essentially that person has chosen to give up and surrender their cognitive abilities. And my go-to line on this is every time you let an AI tool rob you of your chance to think critically or create, you are one step closer to sitting in the chair on the ship in Wall-E drinking blue because it's the new red. And if you get that reference, awesome. And if not, go watch the movie and you'll see what I mean. So to wrap it all up, what I'm saying is bring your teammates along and be disciplined about the application. It is not an investment to be made because it's a shiny new toy or it's a thing that can make all this promise. It's a tool in our toolkit to solve the real problems that we need to solve to be better for our members and our customers. It's not the solution, it's a tool. Be disciplined about it.
Super. You probably nailed it very, very well. And I think the piece of advice, especially for the fellow CIOs, especially when it comes to the people, conditioning of the people is one of the most important things that I think all of you have been agreeing with. And that is a great takeaway from the credit unions, not just the credit unions, overall industry perspective.
Well, people can be both good and bad. You said them. We often get asked to do more with less. The thing is that jerk less almost never shows up for work.
Correct. Absolutely agree. Super. Heather, from your side, you spoke about humanize. Humanize is one of the most important aspects, especially when it comes to customer experience. Your advice to fellow practitioners from the customer experience space on what has been your learning over all these years when you try to implement agentic AI into your area of expertise, and how do they start their journey in case if they are trying to start today, or what are the kind of pitfalls to avoid?
Absolutely. Well, first I want to say I absolutely agree with bring everyone along for the ride. And our jobs as leaders, no matter what sector you're in, what side of the fence you're on, is to teach creativity. So we actually have a stand-up meeting, and the start of it is, what was your most creative AI use case this week? And it's giving permission to people to think outside of the box. And remember, my team is leaders of other people, so they're using it to read their emails and get their calendars aligned and write some training documents. But I'm also giving permission. I just went on a 2-week holiday, and I came back and I told my team, I am not reading any of the emails that came in my inbox. And they went, oh, and I said, Copilot has told me what I need to action. And here's the list, tell me if it missed anything. And they were like, holy shit. So guess what, I just gave them permission. 1, not to send me so many emails the next time I go on vacation. And 2, that Copilot can help us all be productive, and then I'm also showing them how to do that. So, simple things like that is really important. But getting back to your question, some of the things that I would say to look out for from a pitfall, from a lookout from this is, you're going to be challenged by your finance departments, especially in a customer service environment, to cut your staff, to do less. And so you have to be thinking creatively, if there's less transactions, what do you want more of? And so for me, I'm out there saying, I want more value-based conversation. So I need more time on the calls, and I want all of the transactional calls out so that I can spend time doing the moments that matter kinds of conversations. but I need to build the skill in my workforce to be ready for that. So I'm doing that really as fast as I can so that as AI comes, that skill base is there. And then the other piece is the metrics that we measure today are not going to work in the future. So in a call center, you can measure every KPI. You can measure how long the call took, how long they were holding, how long people breathed for. Like, you can measure all of this. And that isn't a memorable moment. Just, being more productive does not mean that it was a great experience. Being more productive does not mean that it was cost effective if that client didn't feel connected to your company. And so the things that are the KPIs of the future are not the ones of the past, and yet your finance department is looking at the KPIs that the vendors are bringing and going, whoa, that is the sexiest thing I've ever seen, because it's millions of dollars off of their finance sheet. But it's $1 million, there can be a savings, but what can you bring as value instead of? And how are you going to use that time effectively? And that's a real shift, because the KPIs in a call center today are the ones that the finance world loves. My finance department loves it. Like, Heather, your HT went down by 10 seconds. Thank you for $2 million. Okay, but I want to actually spend 40 seconds and have them not call back again and have less calls. So that's really what I'm challenged with right now. And it's the language of those new KPIs isn't a established language in the world of AI.
Interesting. And of course, we are all learning as we go along. And I'm sure there will be a lot more new experiences in our tables once we start discussing each of these topics. We will come across more from the audience. We have a equally knowledgeable audience with us for today during the table conversations as well. But this was quite an insight, Heather. Now, as we move on to Mary, you have seen various sectors. You have seen banking, you have seen insurance, you are seeing asset management and private equity. What is your advice to fellow CIOs and information security officers and risk practitioners on what is the future going to be and how they should be prepared in the world of agentic AI?
That's a big one. Where's the future going to be? I think everyone's covered a lot of that. What we know today, we're not going to know tomorrow. And whatever got us here is not going to get us there. So that's I think that's the first thing we need to understand. And we need to be able to be nimble enough to be able to change our ways of thinking, ways of working, to really just catch on to where we're trying to get to. And we should be married to all the multiple different ideas. I think someone had talked earlier about just building tools for the sake of it. One of the things we also need to be aware of is what problems are we trying to solve right now and in the future? And when we're looking at how is AI going to help us, it should not be about all the numbers, the savings, but really, what is the real problem we're trying to solve? And when you find the problem, how are you going to measure and know that, okay, I'm successful because I've done A, B, C, D, E, I've brought this in and brought that in, and that would help get the measurements that we're having as opposed to, oh, we deployed this tool and we have 20% more people using it, and there's a 10% decrease in this and that, but really have we solved the problem that we think is plaguing us as an organization, institution, or whatever that is. So I think that's the guidance that I would also want to bring up. And of course, you cannot put a tool on it and make everything go away. If you've got garbage data, it's still going to be there. If your processes don't make sense, you just build a tool and just run around in your process, and that doesn't go away. If you don't have a governance framework or something that guides you, some sort of discipline that says this is where we're at, this is our North Star, this is our strategy, you're just gonna fall flat because you're just gonna go around and just try to pick what everyone else is doing. And in some cases, we're looking at organizations to sort of be the guiding light, but we're getting to that point where we're all doing the same thing, we're trying to accomplish the same thing, but how do we differentiate ourselves?
Interesting. Bringing the right kind of differentiators is a critical area. Interesting. Thank you so much, Mary. And maybe to Todd for the last question. We have all discussed what the bankers want. Okay? From your side,
I want them to speak up.
yeah. So you probably have to speak in terms of what the bankers should look at. from your angle?
What they should look at?
The payment industry should look at.
Well, I'm going to give you a bump. Our last Hi2AI was all about bringing advancement innovation to Canadian payment rails, right?
Yes.
And everyone in the audience was for it. Everyone said, we want, as customers, we want more advancement in the Canadian banking system, right? Everybody, not one person raised their hand and went, no, I don't want that. They all did. So banks, financial institutions in Canada need to be looking at ways that they can implement this latest wave of capability. I won't say AI, it's a capability, often supported by AI, so that the customers reap better benefits from being customers. I mean, I appreciate that bankers like being bankers, but bankers are bankers because of customers. Everybody here in your personal life and your professional life, you're all right now product managers. AI is an imagination problem. It's not a technology problem. In the old days, to have a great idea, we all had 10, 15, 20, 30 things that, boy, I wish I could change, but you can't because you'd have all the work to get it done. It's completely backwards now. Now you have infinite workforce sitting on your computer, and what's happening is it's an imagination problem. I have infinite workforce, what can I do with it? And this goes back to your question, which is leadership has to change. What the C-suite does today is not what they're going to have to do tomorrow. Because ideas are the currency, the implementation is now much cheaper, much faster than it ever has been before. So everybody here should go back and write down 5 or 6 things that they would like to change about their job and about the way that the customer interacts with you if you happen to be in the banking financial space. That implementation of those ideas is what's going to change the banking industry. But in the practical sense, the banking financial industry in Canada, which is highly respected, highly trusted, needs to move forward with these innovative ideas and being able to implement all of the AI payment capabilities that we talked about.
Interesting. I think that's a great close to this conversation. So thank you very much, all of you. You have been fabulous, amazing.